Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. I'm your host, and today I'll be stepping into the shoes of your CMA professor. We're going to tackle an absolute cornerstone topic for your CMA Part 1 exam: internal control structure and management philosophy. Now look, I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. You see this title and you're like, oh great, pure, boring theory. Am I really just going to have to memorize a bunch of dry definitions? Well, let me stop you right there, because that is a massive misconception. This topic isn't just about some dusty old rules. It's literally the beating heart of an organization's culture. You know, you've probably heard this famous quote before: culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's totally true, and it perfectly captures why the ICMA tests this topic so heavily. Think about it. You could go out and buy the absolute most expensive, state-of-the-art accounting software on the planet. You could write up the strictest rules imaginable, but if the leadership at the top doesn't genuinely care about organizational culture and ethics, well, those controls, they're going to fail every single time. So in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how management's attitude shapes the whole control environment, and more importantly for you, how this actually translates into those tricky exam questions. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. First, the why of controls. Then, the COSO foundation. Third, setting tone at top. Number 4 is philosophy versus operating style. Then we'll hit the exam strategy and finally wrap up with key takeaways. Let's jump into section 1, the why of controls. This is your CMA Part 1 foundation. Okay, so to truly understand internal control structure, we absolutely have to look at the gold standard, which is the COSO Internal Control Integrated Framework. COSO defines internal control as a process designed to provide reasonable assurance that an organization achieves its objectives in 3 main categories: operations, reporting, and compliance. Now, what's really fascinating here is that specific word, reasonable. Notice I didn't say absolute assurance, right? This is absolutely crucial for the exam. No system is completely perfect. The examiners really want to see that you understand that controls mitigate risk, but they don't just magically eliminate it entirely. Moving right along to section 2, the COSO foundation, building the structure. I love this analogy because it brilliantly shows the hierarchy of the framework. So the COSO framework is built on 5 components in total, but today we're laser focused on the absolute base. Step 1, the control environment. Think of it like you're building a massive skyscraper. Step 1 is laying the concrete foundation. Step 2 is stacking the other 4 COSO components right on top of it. So the big takeaway here is this: if that foundation, your control environment, is weak or crumbling, the whole shebang collapses. There is just no way you can build strong risk assessment or control activities on a weak foundation. Which brings us to section 3, setting tone at the top, management attitude. So what actually dictates the strength of this foundation? Well, it's entirely driven by management philosophy and operating style. In a CMA world, we call this the tone at the top. Basically, this is the attitude that top management and the board of directors actively demonstrate when it comes to internal controls. We're talking about core elements here: integrity, ethical values, competence, and accountability. And listen, it's not just about what management politely writes in a company newsletter. It's what they actually do. Like, do they hold themselves to the exact same ethical standards that they demand of their employees? Let's see how this plays out in the real world. As a future CMA, you really need to put on your diagnostician hat and weigh these risks. Ask yourself these diagnostic questions to figure out an organization's true philosophy. Are the executives reckless risk takers, or are they more conservative? Do they put intense pressure on the accounting team to just meet the numbers at all costs, or do they actually prioritize ethical reporting? Are they providing active oversight, or are they totally hands-off until a massive crisis hits? Here's the deal: if management treats internal controls like some annoying bureaucratic nuisance getting in the way of profits, guess what? The employees are going to treat it that way too. And that creates a weak control environment, which is a giant red flag for fraud and material misstatements. All right, section 4, philosophy versus operating style. The what versus the how. Examiners absolutely love, and I mean love, to test your ability to tell these two concepts apart in scenario questions. Let's tackle management philosophy on the left side first. Think of this as the psychological side. It's the what and the why. It represents their core beliefs and their overall appetite for risk. A fast-moving tech startup, they naturally have a high risk appetite, but a commercial bank, super low. Actually, neither is inherently wrong, but their controls absolutely have to match that reality. Now contrast that with operating style on the right. This is the how. It's the day-to-day execution. Are they hands-on or hands-off? Centralized or decentralized?
A massive control risk you gotta watch out for here is an operating style that relies way too heavily on a single dominant individual. That is a huge, screaming red flag on the exam.
Okay, let's look at how this might actually show up in a classic CMA scenario. Imagine Xylos Corp, where the CEO frequently overrides established credit limits for certain customers just to bump up those end-of-quarter sales figures. When you read something like this on the exam, you need to spot immediately that this isn't just some process breakdown in the sales department. No, it is a fundamental flaw in management philosophy. The tone at the top is loudly broadcasting to everyone that short-term revenue matters way more than following company policy. The second employees see this kind of override happening, the entire control structure starts to just crumble. Next up, Section 5, the exam strategy, tackling test day. Listen, when you actually sit down to take this exam, you are rarely going to see a question that just tests pure rote memorization of CASO. That'd be way too easy. Instead, they're going to throw a messy corporate scenario at you. They'll describe a company that's dealing with high employee turnover in accounting, or maybe frequent, completely unexplained audit adjustments, or even terribly vague organizational charts. Your job is to play detective and identify the underlying issue. The best exam strategy? Always look for the root cause. If executive bonuses are tied to insanely aggressive targets without any board oversight, the root cause isn't the bonus structure itself. It's a deep deficiency in the control environment. Let's practice this active learning style right now with a sample multiple-choice question. Which factor is most critical in establishing an effective internal control structure? Is it A, software, like implementing advanced automated accounting software? B, audit schedules, adhering to strict internal testing schedules? C, management's philosophy, operating style, and commitment to ethical values? Or D, bank reconciliations, reviewing them on a monthly basis? Take a second. Think about that skyscraper foundation analogy we used earlier. Boom! If you guessed option C, you are absolutely right. Option C is the clear winner here, and let's break down exactly why. While fancy automated software, strict audit schedules, and bank reconciliations are all super important control activities, they are literally useless without option C. Without a genuinely committed management philosophy, the expensive software from option A, executives will just bypass it. The internal auditors from option B, they'll be totally ignored when they flag concerns. And those monthly bank reconciliations from option D, yeah, they might just be falsified to hide the truth. Remember our quote from the very beginning? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Management's commitment is what drives the entire internal control bus. Let's bring it home with Section 6, Key Takeaways, our review checklist. All right, here is your final review checklist. Number 1, never forget that the control environment is the ultimate foundation of the entire CASO framework. Number 2, tone at the top is the real-world manifestation of management's attitude toward ethics and controls. And lastly, your major exam tip for the day. Always look for leadership behavior as the root cause of control failures in those tricky scenario questions. Internal controls are, at the end of the day, a people-driven system. Management can set all the rules they want, but more importantly, they are setting the example. I want to leave you with this final, kind of provocative question to think about. Picture a company you've worked for, or maybe the one you're aiming to manage after you get your CMA. Is your organization's internal control merely a dusty rulebook sitting on a shelf, or is it a living, breathing culture embraced by leadership? Honestly, answering that question tells you pretty much everything you need to know about their real risk for fraud. So tonight, review those 5 components of the COSO framework, focus heavily on the control environment, and keep studying smart. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.